Welcome back to the Religious Treehouse. I'm Jodie.
I'm Matthew.
How are you doing today, Matthew?
I'm doing great. It's been so long since we've recorded. So it's great to be back in the recording booth here in my new house that is still very much not put together. So again, apologies to all of our YouTube listeners and watchers, but I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jody?
I'm doing phenomenal. Actually, I just got to learn about a super cool, not well-known religion called
Oh,
Kumaré.
yeah. No, tell me about it, Joey.
Like it's super underground. It is just innovative, and the way it connects you to your spirituality is just beyond anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think seeing is the main part here,
Yep.
because we're doing one of our movie reviews and we're reviewing Kumare. I'm so excited. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the movie before we get into it?
I would love to. I love a summary. I'm going to love a summary on this. There is this visionary, Vikram Ghandi, and he decides that he wants to show everyone that you don't need spiritual leaders to truly connect to your spirituality. So he became a guru, and he had this project that he documented the entirety of that slowly grew into him developing a group of people that followed him. And ultimately, he unveiled himself to them as not actually being a guru in the sense they were perceiving him as.
Yeah.
Is that a fair way to phrase that?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a great starting point before we get into the details of what's going on here and its broader implications. But no, this is great. So yeah, Kumare, also known as Vikram Gandhi, is from New Jersey, as we learned from the beginning, and he's a student of film and religion, which love that for him. Isn't that what we all want to be? Isn't it everyone's dream to be a student of film and religion?
I mean, I think he needs to be on our vision board for the podcast because it's like, yes, we like to talk about movies and religion here.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Love him. I want to be him. But no, we start off with him being like, "Hey, I am from New Jersey and my family's from like India and all that stuff." Which and he's like this he sounds like the stereotypical American dude from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And then he's like kind of fed up with these spiritual leaders, spiritual gurus and stuff like that and says, "What if we made a documentary film kind of looking at how that works in American culture?"
It was really cool to hear him talk about his upbringing. Like he brought his brother into it and talked about them being kids and everyone else's heroes being Hulk Hogan and his mom giving them the ability to be connected to their culture and their heritage through
Mhm.
different movies and stuff. So I wanted to go back to that part because I thought that was really sweet. And then he talked about his grandmother and how spiritual she was and
Yeah.
just the influences that led to this. Because, yeah, then he went to college, studied religion, was like, feeling a little skeptical about this one.
Yeah. And then he goes off to India to kind of study a little bit, see like how gurus in India act, and he takes that back to the U.S. to see how the U.S. would interpret it because this came out in 2011, which was kind of just before the height of like yoga being like this big thing in the US. Like Western culture really was like getting into yoga during that time. And like ever since the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, this, infatuation with Eastern spirituality has really been growing in American culture. So I think it's really interesting at looking at this video or this movie as kind of a look and poking fun at in a way, but also looking critically at the co-option of American spirituality taking over Eastern spirituality. I think he did a really good job at kind of illuminating that.
Oh, definitely. Because end of 2011, that was when yoga pants were really popping off, man. That was when the entire yogi aesthetic was taking hold of teens and young 20-year-olds everywhere. The
Mm.
Coachella outfits, the way
Yeah.
people were approaching things. So yeah, so it was also kind of one of those funny life circumstances. He's like, I'm trying to get away from this, and now it's overtaking the Western world.
Yeah.
So what a laughing coincidence that is. Probably
Yeah.
not funny to him.
But he decides to start off in Phoenix, Arizona, so that no one recognizes him. And also, that seems like a good place to kind of incorporate a new spirituality.
Yes.
For I always joke. I have a friend back in undergrad. Uh, we said that if we ever started a religion, we do it in New Mexico because that's where they're going to be open for new religious movements. So definitely Arizona, New Mexico, that's the place you want to be if you want to start a new religion, in my opinion.
I mean, New Mexico is literally the land of enchantment.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, for taking that into consideration, and Arizona's right next door. If we can have aliens, we can have new religions.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, and if we can have an alien religion, even better.
Bonus points,
As we
which
see
we
halfway
see.
through this movie. Yeah. which we do see. But no, I think this is going to be one of those episodes where we kind of just talk about what happens rather than going through piece by piece. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that will be the easiest way to go through this. But yeah, what are your main takeaways, I guess?
I mean, the way this entire project grew, and it started with him just walking around New York City, the montage of him running through Central Park had me cackling. Um, oh my gosh, but even before that, he was talking to gurus in New York City, and you saw some shady people.
Hmm.
And there was that old guy talking about having intercourse with 23-year-olds. And why wouldn't they want to do that with a really spiritual man? And I was like, oh, this is wild. This is going to be crazy. And then he himself starts dressing and acting like a guru, and he gets invited to a friend's class to lead, and he's like, let's take this a step further, let me get two assistants.
Yeah.
And I want to ask him, I was like, when was the moment you knew you were on to something you really wanted to document?
Hmm.
Because that's it's the entire sequence of events to me is just insane, but at the same time, so when we talk about this movie, we're going to have to talk about the ethical implications of posing as a spiritual leader in order to gain a following.
Sure.
Like, how ethically for this are we? But at the same time, did he lie?
Yeah. No, I don't have any problems with the ethics in this movie at all.
Really?
Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, thank God. I was like, should I have a problem with this? Because that guy Greg at the end said he liked what he was teaching. He was ambiguous about the way he went about it.
Sure. No, and that's valid.
That is such a valid because the what he taught these people was illusion, and
Mhm.
that they were the masters of themselves. Once he gets to Arizona and he finds people to teach, that's what he's teaching. He based the entire religion on his project.
Mhm.
And I paid close attention to like the words he said the second time through, and I was like, I don't think he ever lied.
Mhm.
He misrepresented himself,
Sure.
but did he lie?
Yeah, and his middle name is Kumaré. So like he never like really lied.
Where was the lie? You were asking me what my thoughts on this were. I just thought it was such a cool movie. And it was so genuine too. Everyone he met was so genuine.
Hmm.
It was insane. They were like, they really wanted to hear him out and like hear what his thoughts were.
Yeah, and none of his ideas were, necessarily outrageous. Like the specifics were. The specifics were, intentionally kind of funny. But the like overview thoughts were, fairly stereotypical for this type of guru spirituality.
Yeah.
So like some of the specifics were the yoga poses where he was like doing the air guitar, which like no one caught on the whole time. They're just like doing air guitar as like a yoga pose, and they're panting like a dog, which again, like stuff like that isn't necessarily uncommon, but like to that level that he was having them do it was a bit of a stretch. What were some other funny ones? Oh, his symbol that he would put on people's forehead was phallic shaped, which like he was definitely having fun with this. And by having fun with it, like no one said anything. And I think that speaks to the notion that people have of this Eastern spirituality, that they are this eccentric kind of funky group that they don't fully understand, and that's what's so enticing to them. Like there's no like you couldn't be Irish and do this. Like Patrick O'Connor couldn't come down the street and dress up like a leprechaun and convince people to become, the Irish spirituality or whatever that is. Um, like this is very much because he's Indian American that he's able to do this because we have this idea of this Eastern spirituality that is so mystic and special and like this mystery that we don't understand, and that's what's able to make it work. Like a white guy could not do this. This only works because he's Indian American.
Definitely. No, if a white guy rolled up with some of that stuff, they would be like, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
Um, but also I think it just sparked such joy in
Mm.
people, like the things they were doing, like they took it very seriously. I just think about Greg and Toby, and the first person he convinced to follow him was a death penalty attorney.
Mm.
And that had me gobsmacked. I was like, this woman's not dumb.
Yeah.
This woman is well educated. This woman deals with ideas like the thought of the death penalty and having to defend someone. That is something that she even talked about struggling with it,
Mm.
about wrapping her brain around what these human beings are having to go through. And the fact that this made up religion could touch her and change her and make her better for like in her own eyes, crazy, wild, beautiful.
Yeah. And I think the point here is similar to what we talked about in our Jonestown episode, that like anyone can like join these spiritualities that like looking on from the outside, it's really easy to dismiss these things. But anyone who's in a tough spot financially, in a tough spot emotionally, who doesn't have a ton of community supporting them, or who has an extremely stressful job, such as a death sentence lawyer, to have some external group that often finds its form in a religion in some way, whether that be more mainstream religion like Islam or Christianity, or one of these more alternative religious movements like Jonestown or Kumaré. I think it's very common for people to do, and it shouldn't be looked at as this foolish choice to be making. It's people trying to make sense of the world, trying to make sense of what's going on with them, and needing some sort of community. And what religion does really well is providing some sort of boundaries, some sort of guidelines in order to exist within, in order to help you, have a better life for yourself. Like there's one lady who lost 70 pounds by following Kumare's teachings. The other lady like followed a strict schedule and I was able to like take control of her life and stuff like that. Uh, some of the guys were meditating and finding spiritual growth and like healing their marriages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like just because we look on at these things as something silly doesn't necessarily mean it's not helpful or good. And I think that's the question that this movie is asking at its core. It's what is religion and how can people interact with it? And just because it's made up, does that make it not real exactly? And I think that's the question that this movie makes me wrestle with.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between something being real and something being made up?
Yeah, that was a big one I was wrestling with. I went through the 5 stages of spiritual, I don't know what we want to call it, but my first stage was, oh my God, I'm stupid. I'm so dumb. I would totally be in this. I get it.
Mm.
I'm gullible. And then I was like, does any spirituality have any meaning? Is anything actually true? What is true? What is the truth? And then I came around to, no, you're in charge of you, which I think was what he was trying to say at the end of all of this, that you are in charge of making what you believe reality.
Mm.
But it messed with my mind. I have to be so honest.
Yeah, I love that you're like having the same experience as like the people in the movie.
Yeah.
Like you within this hour and a half film, had the experience of the however long those people were involved with Kumaré.
I am so emotional. I sat there and like watching them, like at first Molly, she was the younger girl. Connor made a joke. She was like, she wants to sleep with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sure there are women that want to sleep with him. He's good looking. It's fine. Whatever. But I think she really believed in him. So like I
Yeah,
kept trying to
and there was also that woman who was asking if, hey, should I leave my husband? Like definitely like misplacing the sexuality from her husband onto him. Like,
Mhm.
and that's the other thing with a lot of Indian spirituality is that it's very sexualized, and part of that is because of yoga leaders and stuff like that having big problems with sexual misconduct. But the other part of that is that we've just hypersexualized Indian spirituality, whether that be Hinduism, Buddhism, or anything else regarding Indian spirituality. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, the fetishization of Indian spirituality is a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I just kept wanting to put myself in these people's shoes, and it was easier for me to do it with like the women, like Molly and Kimberly, who was the one that lost 70 pounds. Like when we
Mhm.
got to Kimberly's story, because initially she was a part of the main group, but she sat in the back and didn't really talk. Um, so let me get back to Molly real quick, because Molly felt like she didn't have any control, and she liked that Kumaré didn't tell her what to do. Like everyone else in her life was telling her what to do. And I could relate to that. And then Kimberly, with her weight loss, she's like, I know what I need to do. I just feel selfish doing it for myself. So yeah, there were parts that I was like, oh, I see myself in that. So then I sat there and I was in their shoes and I was like, you know what? No, something like this would be releasing and freeing,
Mhm.
would be nice to hear. So yes, I was feeling it exactly like they did. And I cried at the end. I was like, oh my God. And then the unveiling and everything. But yeah, no, it must have been rough to live through. Like I wish they would do like a Kumaré 10 years later
Mhm.
and see like what people are doing now. I guess it'd be 15 years
Yeah,
next
it came
year.
out in 2011. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, that would be interesting. But like, I think he was only there. It seemed like he was only there for like a couple months.
Yeah.
Um, so like, I, I, it's hard for me to imagine that this left a 15-year impact on these people. But I mean, who can say? Like they said at the end of the film, like a handful of people continued the practices. Like his main teaching was to like imagine a blue light, and if you imagine that blue light, then like it helps you meditate, finds your inner self, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the yoga teachers, like, yeah, I still use that in my teachings. So like, no, there's that idea of fakeness and reality that can blend together, and if it works then cool, like keep it up, like that's kind of what I want to do with this whole channel that we have, this whole podcast. Like let's explore these spiritualities, see what works for people, and instead of telling people to do spirituality your way or another way, see how it works for them, and if it's not causing other people harm, then that should be celebrated to some extent. It should be accepted. We should look at that as, okay, cool. This is how you're living your life. And instead of saying, no, don't do that, say, okay, how can I live alongside that?
Yes. It was really cool also in the documentary how he explored other things like the
Mm.
acoustic theologist. I thought it was very similar to vibrational healing, but I see how it's different. The tools that were used, the way they implemented them, it was definitely not something I had ever seen before.
Mm.
Um, I do wonder if he played up his reaction as Kumaré, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point, because he went to a couple of people. He went to the acoustic theologist.
Mhm.
And I think just that title, theologist instead of theologian, like I would love to be in the mindset of the guy who said, I should be an acoustic theologian. And then he had this idea that said, no, theologian sounds too mainstream. I should be a theologist. Because I know that's exactly what went through his head. And they're just making weird random noises and doing random noise things, which again, looking at that in the quick succession that it gave it to us was like, this is really weird. But they had like a group meeting afterwards where the whoever his friends are or whatever, like they did a group meeting and they were also finding their community in some sense there. And then after that, we go to Urantia, which is what would we would most commonly call a cult, but more of a alien alternative religious movement, similar to the oh my goodness, I can't think of the title of Leon Festinger, The
Oh,
Seekers.
yes.
It had very similar vibes to our episode that
Mm,
we talked about the Seekers and Leon Festinger and cognitive dissonance, in the fact that it was a alien religion. So, and then he looked at those leaders, the leader of Urantia, and saying like, these are the spiritual leaders that I have problems with because they're the ones presenting this direct relationship to some divine that their followers can't have. So they must use those leaders in order to have their spirituality. And that's his issue with organized religion in some extent,
yeah.
because like if you have that, I think he's generally fine with it. Like if that's something that really works for you, but for those leaders to demand that of its followers, saying like I have this special relation, when in some cases it's obviously not the case. Like Kumaré, like that's where there needs to be some tension,
Yeah.
and it's hard to find that middle ground. I think.
Definitely. Especially because when people are on a journey to spirituality, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to have some kind of direction, some kind of path to follow, some kind of journey to take, and to see someone at the end of theirs and aspire to that makes it easier for some people. I think tackling your spirituality on your own is a harder thing than people think it is. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean it differs from person to person
Yeah.
depending on what they're looking for.
Because, I mean, wait, talk about myself now. With my own spirituality, I just like, I'm like, give me a roadmap, give me a guide, tell me what's right, tell me what's perfect, tell me which one's real.
Mm.
And that's what leaves me so open and vulnerable to people selling me things. But it always comes back to me to the sense of community.
Yeah. No,
And that's what they had.
I listened to a podcast where he was being interviewed, and they were kind of relating this to, scams like the Nigerian print scam, and like how that always works is because we've all heard of the Nigerian print scam. It's not going to work on us. But the reason it persists, the reason it keeps on going and going and going, is because there's some people out there that haven't heard it. And for those people that haven't heard it, it's really convincing. And the argument that he was making was like this idea of spirituality, this Eastern Indian spirituality that happens in India, a lot of people there are aware of a lot of the false gurus and stuff like that are just doing it for financial gain and stuff. They figured out all the tricks and stuff. And the reason it's taking off in America is because Americans haven't quite figured out uh, that the red flags to look for per se. And and it's not that Americans are more dumb than Indians, but it's just that they haven't been accustomed to it yet because people in India still get, scammed like that by these false gurus, just like we do in America. It's not that there's different cultures happening that's causing this discrepancy. It's that it happens in both. We just don't hear about it as much in America.
Yeah, no, and the ones we do hear of don't always have to be gurus. Sometimes they're pastors in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that yeah, the way no, for sure. Like we're talking specifically about Indian spirituality here, but this goes for all religions. All religions, there's going to be people who are genuinely trying to do their best and genuinely trying to help each other, and there's going to be scammers who are looking at these religious movements as a way to financially gain without naming any names. Joel Osteen. So, but no, there's so many out there from all religions.
It's okay. First of all, I have so many thoughts. Like number one, Americans love New Age spirituality. It's
Mhm.
it's just a fact. I
Yeah.
love it. I love my crystals. It is so calming to me. I know the rocks don't work. I know. But the rocks remind me of what I'm trying to achieve.
Sure.
And what Vikram did with Kumaré was constantly remind people of what they wanted to achieve.
Hmm.
And it was so cool when he went into that new age shop and he was debating with the owner that like symbols were tools.
Hmm.
It just and I'm sorry, I'm just in awe of this guy. I'm like, he made up a whole religion. He made up a whole religion. I'm so convinced I would practice this.
Yeah.
And it was good. I don't think it wasn't malicious. He
Right. No, not
he
at all.
didn't nothing was with malicious intent. Everything was done with the best intent. But at the same time, he was also still tricking them.
Yeah.
But he said it was an illusion. I
You
keep
know,
going back and forth.
it's the question of what is religion? Is religion, can you define it as function? Is religion something that functions as religion, or is religion some set of, parameters that things function in? Uh, and I keep saying this. I feel like I'm saying this every other week. We need an episode on how to define religion because
Yeah.
we can't. It's like impossible to do. There's so many ways to try to define religion. But no, I think there's this idea that he's playing with that we don't really know what is or isn't religion, and is it functional or is it communal? Like how is this something that we work with?
Yeah. Because in order for there to be community within religion, I think there does need to be leaders. I don't know if that necessarily means spiritual leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I This just has me questioning what I think the shape of religion should be.
Yeah, well, and the problem is, since we're in America, our idea of religion is so clouded by American spirituality, American religion, that primarily being Christianity. And there's so many other methodologies of doing religion out there that aren't really, necessarily leader focused. Like Buddhism, for the most part, like there are higher rankings and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's fairly communal. Baha'i faith, they have, each section has like locally elected leaders, but the way that they elect leaders is, very different than how other leaders are elected. And it's, if you're part of the community, you can be voted in, and it's this burden isn't the right word, but it's not necessarily someone advocating for themselves to become the leader of this community. So there's a lot of different ways for religious groups to form themselves with, and because we're so accustomed to, Christianity in America, when we think of religion, we think of it being in that general structure.
Honestly, this movie just showed me how much more I need to deconstruct. It was wild. It Can I give a kudos to his two assistants? Those women put in work.
Mm-hmm.
They made the entire shebang so believable.
Yeah.
It was a team effort. It was a good effort. If you're still listening and you haven't watched the movie yet, pause and go watch the movie. It's so good. It's
Yeah,
on Tubi.
which is free. It's free to watch on Tubi. So it's a great
Um,
movie.
so let me see. Oh, the past life psychic. The one that told him that he had many Kumares behind him.
The V, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that she didn't sense any Vikram, but there was Megatron, the
Yeah.
Archangel. She wasn't wrong. I don't know. I don't know what you want from me. There was no Vikram when he presented himself to her.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's playing with this idea of what is religion, what is not religion.
Mm.
And just because like he's focusing on this new age spirituality and he's poking holes through it doesn't mean it isn't functional. It doesn't mean it's not real per se. And I think that's because like I don't know, like that whole type of thing, like card reading. I've had people like ask me, "Can I read your cards for you?" And I always say yes because that's so much fun. It's always so exciting, and it's not anything that I take to heart. It's not anything that I take seriously, but I think it's so fun to be presented with symbols because that's mainly what it is for the most part, and then they kind of interpret it however they want. And I think that's just so exciting. It's all that is reading a book. It's reading a book and coming away with something, except the book that they're reading are, a handful of cards with like two words on it. And it's just creating this story each time. And it's fun. It's exciting. And if that gives you some deeper meaning, cool, go for it. And if not, just have a little fun with it. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Tarot card pulling is a lot of fun. It's it's soothing, honestly, to like if you have a question, because it's not there to tell you what's going to happen. It's there to guide you. And what you need to do is trust your intuition then. And it helps connect you to you is what it does, because if you're and you're not supposed to read for yourself, but I question how can it function correctly if you're not reading for yourself? I'm going on a tangent. Anyways, new age spirituality is not perfect by any means, by the way. There are quite a few flaws.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm one to say that if I have the authority to say if there's flaws or not. I think there's no and again this is outside my area of
Yeah.
expertise, but there's no real centralized way of doing it. There's
No.
no real centralized way. This is how you do new age spirituality per se. This is how you do yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And I think that's what causes so much confusion in people because it doesn't necessarily follow along the lines of Christianity that so many Americans are accustomed to. Just like Indian spirituality and gurus doesn't follow the roadmap of American spirituality that people are used to. And I think that's why it's so appealing to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so scary to so many other people.
Yeah. When I say flaws, I meant that there's just sometimes they delve into closed practices, and I'm still learning what a closed practice is. Where do we stand on a closed practice? Where is the threshold for that? And that brings me to thoughts I've had about like yoga and stuff. Like, it is it a, if it's a religious practice
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay,
to
so
an extent.
yoga. Okay, again, this is me speaking in a place where I have no authority speaking.
Okay,
So I'm going to get a few words wrong here, and someone
got it.
who's more knowledgeable, please put things in the comments.
Vikram.
But Vikram, please put things in the comments. But yoga was so there's this idea in Hinduism of yoga, and it's again not my area of spirituality, not my area of specialty or spirituality. But yoga is this spiritual practice that has the ways of doing it. But what we know of as yoga, what we think of as yoga, is this idea that was pushed in the 1950s. I want to say, I could be wrong here, by British imperialists who were in India and trying to find like this Indian version of calisthenics and exercise ideas. And they say, oh, yoga, like these yoga moves and practices, how we can kind of co-opt that into our own exercise type of situation. And it's been co-opted into that type of situation. So what we think of yoga versus like yoga in Hinduism are very different ideas. And so like yoga that we think of now incorporates some of those ideas. And sometimes these practitioners of yoga know what they're talking about, but most of the time it's these people in these movies that are kind of presented in this movie as just doing this vague spirituality type thing that is helpful for some people, but is not helpful for other people. My advisor in undergrad, he did his PhD stuff in Hinduism, and he's big into like he's I did my undergrad in California, so he's like this hippie guy. Like think of a hippie. That was my professor. He taught with his shoes off, like he walked around barefoot and taught. He was great, one of my favorite people ever. And he would always complain about like trying to find like a yoga practitioner person that he could like go do yoga with because the school would like offer yoga classes and stuff. And he said, yeah, I went to this one class and they just had no idea what they were talking about. They were telling us about Hinduism, but what they were actually talking about was Buddhism, and they just had no idea what anything was going on. So like there's this massive confusion that I can't speak to because it's not my area of specialty, that we just don't know what's going on with Eastern spirituality. We hear something and we try to conflate it with something else that we hear that's vaguely Eastern, and we say, okay, that's close enough. Here we are.
Well, that throwing Eastern spirituality in a blender and pouring out whatever you got.
Yeah. And that's not to say you can't do that for your own spiritual needs and practices, but that also takes away from people who do it, you know, differently,
Yeah.
that adhere to more traditional, if you want to call it that way. And also that in end of the 19th century, early 20th century, the idea of bringing Hinduism over to America had to be reframed a lot in order to try to make it make sense to the American mind. So it's very hard to talk about Eastern spirituality in America. It's very confusing to us without doing extensive research.
Well, yes, because we colonized and then gentrified it, man.
Yeah.
It's easily packaged now into a little mat and some cute pants.
Yeah.
You go for a smoothie after yoga. Yeah. So there was a lot in this movie. I think it commented on a lot and so many things, and the conversations had in it were just very enlightening and nice. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, there were just some real genuine people who just wanted to be happy with him. Oh my God, when he and Toby pretended to scuba dive, because that was her version of heaven, I nearly lost it. I was like, this is precious. It was just so very human. It was such a
Mm-hmm.
human movie. I liked seeing that side of humanity. So thank you for introducing me.
Yeah. No, happy to. Um, if there's nothing else to talk about, we have our last question. Was this a religious movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a religious movie. Whether or not the religion continued after the movie,
Yeah.
it was a religious movie. What do you think?
Yeah. I lean more towards this being about religion, than being a religious movie. Just on for the sake of it, say at poking fun at all of this. But I can see where you're coming from.
Can I change my answer? I think it was a spiritual movie, but it was about religion.
Sure.
But I think there was a spiritualness to this movie I also feel with the Prince of Egypt. Yeah, that's right. It's going
Sure.
up there.
Okay. Yeah. How do you differentiate? I mean, and I have answers for this, but it's one of those that I want to hear your thoughts on. How do you differentiate spirituality and religion?
I don't have to define this to you. It's my world. You're all living in it. Um, I just sometimes I feel like religion, at least again, like the religion I'm used to has a deity of some
Yeah.
sort. When I think of spirituality, there's no deity, just a connection with the energy around you.
Yeah. No, because there's this big push in the last decade of, spiritual but not religious. And I don't think we've heard that as much in the past couple of years. But this push of spiritual but not religious, I think people who identify with that label could really identify with this movie and like what this movie is really trying to push, whatever that may mean to whoever. Because I think spirituality and religion is different to everyone, and that's fine or whatever. But yeah, I think this movie can really identify or really connect with people who are like, I'm spiritual but not religious,
Because
which is
you're the
fun.
master of your own destiny, man.
As Kumaré says.
They talked about law of attraction. The teens would eat this movie up.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, the vision boards. How did we not talk about the vision boards?
There is more to talk about.
Yeah.
We put the cart
um,
before the horse.
um, yeah. Oh my goodness. I get okay, briefly, and this will be the last thing we talk about.
Okay.
The very end, the closing scenes of him admitting that he's just Vikram Gandhi from New Jersey.
Because he couldn't do it the first time at the unveiling. He was too chicken.
Yeah.
So he
I
waited a
think
couple months.
yeah. And yeah, I think it said 10 of his 14 followers were still in contact with him when the movie came out. So that means four of them said, no more. This is messed up. How would you react to that?
I think initially, well, I think that depends on what I got from the experience.
Mm.
I think the individuals who truly embodied what he was teaching and did not view him as their master, but merely a friend who's sharing stories with them,
Mhm.
I think they were fine with what happened. And I think they found the beauty in him unveiling himself.
Yeah.
But the people who were still latched on to the idea of him as a teacher and leader
Mhm.
probably felt betrayed.
Yeah.
I would like to think I'd be in the first camp. I'd probably be in the second because I'm so used to having someone to answer to. But I'd want
Yeah.
to be in the first camp. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that um that his teaching, his the thing that he taught, and the reason he taught it is because something he actually could get behind, was that, you know, internally you don't need an external source to tell you what to do. Like you're in control of yourself, and you have the power to do that internally. And I think I think the people that were able to really internalize that were able to see how the everything was changed. And like, okay, this guy actually wasn't in control. It was me making those changes. And I think if they were able to internalize it that way, I think they were okay with it, as you were saying.
Yeah. It's just it's a hard thing though because as much as we want to give him all this space, like he technically didn't lie. He was honest. He just put on an accent, different clothing, changed his appearance,
Mm.
and he only did it for a short amount of time. There is the fact that people could feel betrayed and lied to.
Yeah. No, yeah, the difference between him and other fake spirituality leaders is that he came clean.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this. I don't have any ethical problems with this. But yeah, I think we can close it there. There's so much more to talk about, but this is one of those movies that, like, if you're in religious studies, you might have heard of it, but if you like have never taken a religious studies class or anything like that, probably not heard of it. And it's one of my favorite movies, like of all time, favorite documentaries at least. Uh, so yeah, I'm a big fan.
It was good. 10 out of 10. Well, thank you all for joining us here at the Religious Treehouse today. We hope you had a great time. If you want to continue the party and the fun, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music. Join us on Instagram, TikTok, Bluesky, Twitter. Email us at threligioustreehouse@gmail.com. Comment anywhere, anywhere, please.
And
Good or bad.
subscribe. I
Subscribe.
think I feel like that's something that people always ask in their YouTube videos.
It
Like and
is.
subscribe. We've never asked to subscribe. Subscribe. It'll be
Subscribe.
fun. It's just a button.
We've
We
never
don't know
asked them
what
to
it
like
means.
either. Like this.
Like, do we not ask? I don't know. Click
Like this.
buttons. Click as many buttons as you can find.
Yeah. And if you're like, hey, I want to hear more, there's going to be 2 videos that pop up that suggest the best videos for you. Hopefully one of them is Prince of Egypt. I should just make that a permanent video, but okay. I hope you all had a fantastic time with us here in the treehouse. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.